Hi, I remember sitting with some fellow collectors and we were talking about different countries and the guns they make. And the former Soviet Union came up, and some of the people said, well, the only thing they ever made that was worthwhile was the AK47 and some 22s and maybe some biathlon rifles. And if you go on the web, of course, that's all true. But I guess maybe not many people know that, like any country, the former Soviet Union made some really fine firearms. Not that the AK-47 isn't a fine firearm, it's an exceptional firearm, as we all know, for its purpose. But they also made some incredibly nice sporting rifles and shotguns, and I happened to be lucky and got my hands on an over and under some time ago, and side-by-sides, and you're probably familiar with the Baikal brand, B-A-I-K-A-L. I guess it's named after Lake Baikal, which is, I read someplace it has more fresh water than any other lake, but you can read about that. Anyhow, so on the table, this is not an AK-47. This is made in, it's marked on the bottom, made in the USSR. I don't know if it's possible to film that, but there it is, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And this would have been, you know, a very expensive piece of machinery in that regime, and I have to say it's an exceptional over and under. Now you can see that they've done some wire inlay here. This recoil pad is not factory. Somebody put that on afterwards, but it doesn't matter. It's probably a good idea, actually. The wire inlay is well done. Mother of pearl duck. It has a cheek piece, which is a little odd. It's a rollover cheek piece for a shotgun, but it doesn't matter. It's quite comfortable. The checkering, I've had a few of these Russian or USSR firearms, and the checkering's not exactly the best, but it's definitely serviceable. And then we've got more wire inlay, and then we've got some engraved patterns, panels in the sides of the action, which I'm going to describe in a second. And you can see, you know, they engraved quite well. You've got the barrel selector and safety. And this panel is very well done. We've got some retrievers and quail or something like that. Bottom of the action is engraved as well. It's a double trigger. And then getting to the other side of the action, we have unusually like some deer, or red deer probably, and maybe that's a roe deer, I don't know. But it's kind of interesting because it doesn't really have sights. It's not really a slug gun, but maybe that was the panel that was engraved that day, so it went in here. Maybe they made a slug gun version. Actually, I know they did. I had one. Very accurate over and under, but that's another story. Anyway, an interesting design. You can see that the forend is split, and it's held together by these retaining screws. There's more wire inlay. Got a couple of checkering patterns there, not badly done. And then I'll just flip it. Oh, the European shotguns often have swivels just because they like having a sling, which is probably not a bad idea. Anyhow, the action is quite interesting. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the game with over and unders is to try to get the receiver as shallow as possible. In no time, a receiver, because of the locking system on the bottom, gets pretty deep. So I put this side by side on the table for comparison. This is also made in the USSR, and somewhere it says it on this shotgun. I forget where. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It had some color case hardening that's worn away. But you can see how shallow a typical side-by-side is. And the over and unders get very deep. Now, I put this on the table for comparison. This is a Miroku, and it has a hinge pin. So these barrels pivot on this pin. When you break the action, you can hear the ejectors. This action rotates around this pin. And this is a beautifully made shotgun, excellent shotgun. I'll do a video on it. And then it locks. Now, the hinge pin and the locking means this receiver gets pretty deep. And this is not the deepest receiver. They get still deeper. On the USSR shotgun, they got rid of the hinge pin by milling a radius. So although this disappears into the action, you can see there's no hinge pin here. It's not rotating on that. This radius is causing the action to rotate, and it locks up perfectly. And then you can see, whoops, you can see on the bottom the locking. Other than that, it's a conventional over and under, but they got the receiver a little shallower, and this shotgun is very light. They must have milled away a bunch of steel in here, but there's no shortage of strength. It's quite strong. Double triggers. The Moroku is single trigger. I guess I understand some people like single triggers, especially competitive shooters, but for sporting purposes, I never had a problem with double triggers. You can instantly select what choke you want, and this one is a 12 gauge, that's 12. This is a trap gun actually. So anyway, they're both 2 3/4 inch, and I can just flip this around so you can see the workmanship on the stock. They put a cheek piece on here, almost like for a rifle, but it's very well done. It's not exhibition grade wood, but it's fine. Just altogether a very fine shotgun by any measure. And I have another one of these in the sporting version. The vent rib is attached perfectly. The barrel's ring true. Everything on it is, I would have to say, excellent. And all that from the USSR. So kind of just a little bit of a different video showing a firearm from a country or a superpower, I guess, at the time, that was quite isolated, and we don't see many fine firearms from the USSR. But they wanted them too, and came up with this over and under. And I've never had a problem with it. It works perfectly. Like most things made in the USSR. Very durable, very tough. And all the mechanism and the coil springs are notably simple, which, as you know, is a good feature. In firearms design, usually when one thing goes wrong, everything goes wrong. So you can't have one thing go wrong. And I've never had that happen with actually any of the Russian products. I've shot this one far more, this side by side. You can see the stock even split here. It broke. That was not a fault of the designer. Sometimes accidents happen. Anyway, it's been repaired. And this side by side is about as durable as anything. A fantastic firearm. I don't see them come up often. And the over and under in this grade I never see. Anyhow, that's it. USSR shotgun, not an AK-47 for sure. Thanks for watching.